Some companies are doomed to fail from the beginning. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 terrible game companies that no longer exist. Before we begin, we publish new videos every day, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at video game companies which have permanently shut down. This isn't to say that every game all of these studios came out with was terrible. Sometimes it was definitely an issue of a fall from grace, but they all did something wrong that led to their closure.
It's a good day to die.
You always say that.
It always is.
Number 10. Silicon Knights. They may have put out some good games at one point, but when controversial CEO Dennis Dyack decided to sue Epic Games for failing to provide a working version of Unreal 3, he was digging his own grave. Epic fought back by countersuing, saying that Silicon Knights illegally used Unreal 3 without the proper licensing.
Hey! Why are you serving him? He could be the one doing all the killing around here.
Epic won $4.45 million, and all Silicon Knights properties using Epic's codes were ordered to be destroyed. In 2014, they filed for bankruptcy and went on to form Precursor Games, which also couldn't get off the ground thanks to a failed Kickstarter campaign and co-founder Kenneth McCulloch being charged with possession of child pornography. Number 9. Active Enterprises. Despite having active in their name, they were anything but. During their very short lifespan, they only released one game, the now infamous Action 52. It was a compilation of 52 completely unlicensed games released originally for the NES, none of which worked how they were supposed to. A glitchy, unfinished mess with endless levels and repetitive mechanics. Not one of the 52 games was actually any good. It originally sold for $199, meaning very few people could spare the cash to buy it. Ironically today, Action 52 cartridges are so rare they've actually increased in value. Somehow. Number 8. Mystique. They say that sex sells, but 1980s company Mystique took this far too literally, creating a genre of games they dubbed Swedish erotica, despite none of the games or employees having any connection to Sweden whatsoever. All three of their releases were infamously bad and highly pornographic. Most notably was Custer's Revenge, in which the player controls an 8-bit sprite which looks like a naked man in a cowboy hat, indiscriminately named after General Custer, and directs him to have sex with a Native American woman tied to a cactus while dodging arrows. What the actual hell? Many people rightly took offense to this, and the company quickly shut down in the midst of the 1983 crash. Number 7. Data Design Interactive. As the masters of pumping out identical, terrible shovelware titles, it's no wonder that DDI ultimately went into insolvency and closed its doors for good. Even its most notable games remain obscure and unpopular, while almost all of them are exact clones of one of their earliest games, Ninja Breadman, just reskinned. This game was already bad the first time around, consisting of only 3 levels taking under an hour to beat. The core gameplay is throwing unlimited projectiles at the on-screen enemies until you kill enough of them that you revert back to the title screen, ready to do it all again. Woo freaking who. Number 6. Titus Interactive. This Paris-based company didn't begin all bad, but in the late 90s and early 2000s, they began a slow but sure decline in quality and popularity.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Be careful out there. Things are getting hot.
Once seen as a potential rival to AAA giant EA, they eventually found themselves releasing the infamous commercial failures Superman 64 and RoboCop. The former suffered a lot of issues from DC Comics, including very close creative direction and a 6-month approval process post-development, all of which resulted in what has been called the worst video game ever made. And it's very easy to see why.
In short time, your fate will be sealed, Superman.
Number 5. Animation Magic. Making good video games was never really on the table for Animation Magic.
That'll really make 'em cry. It's a nasty kind of magic from a special kind of guy.
After going through various name changes and company mergers, the entire studio, half based in Maryland and half based in St. Petersburg, was closed down in 2001. Of its 90 employees, 2/3 of these were animators tasked with working on the disastrous Zelda games released for the CDI.
Here! Thanks.
They only made two, The Faces of Evil and The Wand of Gamelon, but both were of such a low quality that it's no surprise nobody makes games on CDs anymore.
I wonder what happened to Link.
Oh, he was a bore anyway.
Number 4. Stellar Stone. As a cost-cutting measure, this studio outsourced most of its work to Russia and Ukraine, but their games were such failures that they would have saved more money if they hadn't started the company to begin with. Of their 7 major titles, the only one you might have heard of is Big Rigs Over-the-Road Racing. Supposed to be a racing game for trucks and semis, Big Rigs was a broken pre-alpha mess. There was no game over screen, no AI, no sound, and every race ended with a pop-up reading, "You're a winner!" Stellar Stone, who closed down in 2004, were definitely not winners. Number 3. Tiger Telematics. With humble beginnings as an electronics distributor and a carpet retailer, this unlikely duo joined forces to become Tiger Telematics. They made it their mission to create a brand new handheld console to rival the market dominance of Sony and Nintendo, and created the Gizmondo. Despite a lavish marketing campaign, upon release, only 25,000 units were sold. A year after its release, the company went bankrupt with over $300 million of debt, while it was also discovered that 3 high-ranking company executives had ties to the Swedish mafia and multiple previous convictions for fraud.
And then, yep.
Number 2. LJN. Originally a toy company, few studios are as infamous as LJN, who made their bad name churning out licensed property after licensed property. All their games were cash-ins using the names of established franchises, and nearly every last one of them was terrible. However, contrary to popular belief, LJN aren't entirely to blame for these gaming failures. Throughout their tenure, they only published games, they did not develop them, but the fact remains that they almost exclusively put out stinkers, which explains why they didn't stick around. Number 1. Digital Homicide Studios. The Slaughtering Grounds may not have been worst game of all time material, but gamers agreed unanimously that it sucked.
Game over.
Its developers couldn't bear to hear the ugly truth, however, and rather than just accept that they made a bad game, they decided to bring lawsuits against everybody who criticized their titles.
The Steam store page promises hilarious over-the-top action.
This included a $10 million lawsuit against Jim Sterling for assault, libel, and slander, as well as another $18 million taken out against various Steam users for personal injury. The hefty cost of these failed lawsuits ultimately led to them going out of business. It seems their business model was the real Digital Homicide all along.
To be perfectly honest, and to back up the statement I published before this video went up, I don't find this lawsuit funny. It's not funny, it's disgusting.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.